Section 1. The weight of borrowed emotions. Have you ever felt a sudden tremor of someone else's sorrow in your chest, as if their heartbreak became your own? Picture a bustling room where every laugh, every sigh, every pang of anxiety radiates through the crowd, and you feel it all, as if each emotion were a secret being whispered directly into your soul. If this pulls at something inside you, you might be more than just sensitive. You may be an empath, a living conduit for the world's hidden pain, carrying burdens you never signed up for. Consider the last time you entered a friend's home, only to leave heavier than when you arrived, though no words were spoken. Perhaps you've woken in the morning with a knot of dread, only to learn later that someone you barely know endured a loss. Or you felt inexplicable joy one afternoon and discovered someone miles away celebrating a long-awaited triumph. These everyday mysteries reveal the hallmark of empathy at its deepest level, an unshielded nervous system that intercepts the emotional wavelengths of everyone around you. This isn't about being too soft or overly compassionate. It's about possessing a rare sensitivity that reaches beyond the personal, to the collective undercurrents pulsing through our world. With that gift comes a burden, the risk of drowning in unclaimed emotions, of losing sight of where others end and you begin. It's a fine line between connection and consumption, and in the next sections, we'll uncover how to recognize it and how to reclaim your center. Section 2. Beyond feelings. Most of us think of empathy as a kind smile or a gentle word. We laud the person who lends a shoulder to cry on or offers condolences to a friend in pain. But the true empath lives in another dimension entirely, one where emotions are raw, psychic currents rather than polite social gestures. Carl Jung described archetypes as living patterns older than history. In this view, the empath is an archetype unto themselves, an ancient role predating modern psychology's neat definitions. Imagine standing in the eye of a storm, wind and rain battering your body, yet you remain calm, not because you're untouched, but because you're channeling the storm itself. That's the empath's paradox. You both suffer and endure the flood of psychic energy around you. Left unchecked, this torrent can overwhelm every aspect of your life, your health, your relationships, even your sense of identity. But contained and understood, it can become a source of profound insight. Empathy has become a buzzword, plastered on social media as though it were a fashionable accessory. But when something goes mainstream, its potency often fades. The popular image of the empath, a serene, misty-eyed healer, is a caricature that obscures the archetype's real intensity. A true empath is more like a lightning rod. Raw, psychic energy channels through them, unfiltered, from every psyche they touch. That energy can inflame, overwhelm, or burn if there's no structure to contain it. And yet, this powerful connection to collective emotion also offers unmatched wisdom. In a world craving authenticity, the empath can sense unspoken truths, ferreting out hidden motivations in others. But to wield this gift without peril, you must learn to recognize when you are genuinely connecting and when you are unconsciously absorbing. Section 3. The dream of the blind healer. In one of Jung's archetypal visions, he dreamed of a blind woman standing on a bridge above a yawning pit of voices, wails of despair, longing, confusion. She had no eyes, yet felt every cry in her bones. Her blindness was her inability to distinguish between her own pain and the world's. This is not mere poetry. It's a template for the empath's challenge. seeing with the heart, but learning the limits of that sight. Many empaths find themselves on bridges of their own making, connecting vastly different emotional landscapes, but living in permanent liminality. A friend once described how, during a family dinner, she began to sob uncontrollably. No one had said anything hurtful. She simply absorbed her cousin's unresolved grief. Afterward, she felt anger at herself for the outburst, not realizing the real culprit was an invisible transfer of emotion. This dream also warns that without sight, without the capacity to discern, you become vulnerable to being lost in the underworld of other people's psyches. The solution isn't to close your heart, but to develop inner vision, a way to see both your own truths and the reflections you pick up from others. We'll explore practical ways to cultivate this vision in sections to come. Section 4. The unconscious conduit. The unconscious is a cauldron sacred yet chaotic, without moral compass or sense of personal boundaries. When an empath opens to another's emotional field, they invite raw psychic material into themselves. Most people carry shadows, unprocessed traumas, unloved pain, suppressed rage. These shadows seek refuge. An unguarded empath becomes the natural host. In clinical work, I encountered a woman who described waking each morning feeling like she had spent the night holding someone else's hand through their worst nightmares. She had no conscious memory of trauma in her own life, yet her body bore the marks. Chronic fatigue, tension headaches, a perpetual tightness around her heart. Only after mapping her family tree did we discover several generations of untended sorrow. Her ancestors' grief had transferred drop by drop until she became the repository of a collective wound. The result of untempered empathy, irritability, depression, even physical collapse. Yet empaths often persevere, assuming they are simply carrying too much, unaware that their struggle comes from carrying what was never theirs. Recognizing this conduit role is the first step toward restoring equilibrium. You learn to open and close the valve that controls how much you let in. Section 5. Ancestral echoes. Empathy often runs on ancestral tracks. A client, a gifted painter, would feel inexplicable heaviness whenever she visited her grandmother's home. Later exploration revealed her grandmother had been the village midwife, absorbing the suffering of countless mothers in childbirth. That legacy lay dormant until it resurfaced in the painter's modern life as chronic emotional exhaustion. Ancestral echoes can manifest as physical symptoms, fatigue, digestive issues, or as psychological ones, anxiety, unexplained sadness. Until these echoes are acknowledged, empaths risk perpetuating cycles of generational pain. Integrating ancestral shadow work, researching family histories, participating in mourning rituals, naming inherited burdens, allows empaths to differentiate their own feelings from those carried forward through bloodlines. By honoring these echoes instead of unconsciously repeating them, you transform inherited pain into a source of insight. You become the bridge that finally allows ancestral suffering to flow into conscious awareness and then clear the path for true healing. Section 6. Naming the shadows. There is profound wisdom in ancient tribal practice. To name what haunts you. In one African village, an empathic dreamer, suffering waves of unspoken grief, was taught not to exorcise the spirits, but to call them by name: grief, longing, fear. Each time she named a spirit, its hold lessened. The shadows gained identity and could return to their rightful owners. This alchemical act of naming is central to conscious empathy. In Jungian terms, you are giving the shadow a face, integrating it into your psyche rather than letting it roam free. By saying, "This anger is my own," or "This sorrow belongs to my grandmother," you create clear boundaries. The shadows no longer bleed indiscriminately into your life. They become partners in your inner drama, subject to dialogue rather than dictation. Section 7. Boundaries as sacred vessels. Empathy without discernment leads to contamination. Imagine a sieve with holes too large, precious grains slip through, lost forever. Your energetic boundaries must function like a sieve calibrated just right, porous enough to allow connection, sturdy enough to keep you intact. Boundaries are not walls, but membranes, flexible filters that allow genuine empathy to flow while deflecting the psychic debris. Practice phrases that reinforce this membrane. "I hear you," "I feel your pain," followed by, "Yet I remain myself." Visualize a golden membrane around your auric field, strong but translucent, protecting you from overload while honoring your gift. Section 8. The mirror, not the tomb. Imagine a cathedral of mirrors. An empath walks its aisles, expecting to see only their own reflection, but instead finds countless faces, lost children, broken soldiers, grieving mothers, each pleading for recognition. In that moment, they scream, "Which one is me?" That mirror labyrinth is the empath's labyrinth, urging them to reclaim their own face. True mastery begins when the empath no longer reflects others' wounds as their own, but holds a mirror to show people their potential, not their pain. Practically, this means pausing in conversation when you feel a surge of borrowed emotion and asking, "Whose story is this?" Over time, you'll learn to distinguish between the echoes you channel and the authentic voice of someone seeking empowerment. For example, a client described how she would instantly tears up whenever a friend recounted a sad memory. By practicing to pause, breathe, and ask inwardly, "Is this hers or mine?" she began to spot the moment the grief entered her field. With that awareness, she could offer presence, "I'm here with you," without absorbing the sorrow into her own psyche. This is the empath's true gift, to be a mirror of possibilities, reflecting back strengths we struggle to see in ourselves. You become the one who looks not just at another's pain, but at their unrecognized courage, their unrealized dreams. And in doing so, you guide them to meet their own reflection with compassion and hope. Section 9. The wounded mystic. When an empath integrates their gifts and shadows, they evolve into what Jung might call the wounded mystic. Their scars are no longer silent marks of suffering, but symbols of initiation, badges of having traversed the underworld and returned with wisdom. The wounded mystic walks through the world, offering presence without sacrifice. They have learned to feel deeply, then step back into their own energy field to process and release. In relationships, they listen with full attention, but maintain their own inner life. In their work, they channel insight without needing validation. In solitude, they honor their own rhythms without guilt. Consider the story of a teacher who once broke down in tears each time a student shared trauma. After years of boundary work, she now meets her students' stories with a calm, rooted presence. She feels their pain, acknowledges it, then consciously lets it flow past her, like water through her hands. Her classroom became not a place of emotional collapse, but a sanctuary of healing, where empathy guided transformation rather than draining her spirit. The wounded mystic offers clarity, not rescue. Their empathy becomes a lamp that illuminates without extinguishing themselves. They understand that true healing arises when suffering is witnessed fully, named, and then met with the grace of discernment. Section 10. The Magician's Caution. Beware the next archetype, the magician. With deep insight comes the temptation to believe oneself above frailty, to wield empathy as a tool of influence rather than a gift of service. The magician archetype can twist compassion into manipulation, turning empathy into a guise for control. True initiation demands lifelong vigilance. The conscious empath asks every morning, am I feeling, refusing, healing, or controlling? Present or performing? These questions are not doubts, but guideposts of maturity. When you catch yourself slipping, seeking admiration for your sensitivity, or using compassion to avoid your own pain, you course correct, returning to the path of authentic alchemy. A cautionary tale, a counselor who, thrilled by her ability to fix clients, found herself exhausted and bitter. She realized she had fallen under the magician's spell. Her empathy had become a performance, a way to feel indispensable. Only when she relearned to listen without the need to resolve did her work regain its alchemical power. Her clients felt truly seen, and her own spirit was freed from the burden of endless fixing. Section 11. Turning Points and Transfiguration. Every empath faces a crucible, a draining relationship, a boundary shattered, a burnout so deep you question your path. These are not failures, but initiation rites, thresholds that test your capacity to hold compassion without collapse. In these moments, ask yourself, am I saving someone who doesn't wish to be saved? Sometimes, the greatest act of empathy is to step back, allowing others to meet their own shadows. This act of separation is not selfish. It is sovereignty, the empath's path from martyr to mystic. Think of a son who spent years caretaking his depressed mother, believing she couldn't survive without him. Only after seeking support and setting firmer boundaries did he discover she had the resources to heal on her own. His withdrawal did not abandon her. It liberated them both to enter healthier, mutual relationship. Through these crucibles, you refine your purpose. You learn that true compassion does not rescue, it accompanies. It holds space without shouldering the entire weight. You discover that sometimes the most potent healing arises not from doing more, but from allowing room for another's own strength to emerge. Section 12. The Final Threshold. Picture kneeling before a furious storm, your hands wrapped around a simple clay cup. Lightning cracks overhead, thunder shakes the earth, and rain lashes like 1,000 tears. You lower the cup into the torrent, not to drink, but to witness. As the storm pours its grief into your vessel, you feel its weight, the raw ache of countless souls. Yet you do not tilt the cup to your lips. Instead, you whisper, I feel you, but I am not you. In that moment, something remarkable happens. The storm rages on, yet within you spreads a calm so profound it defies the chaos. This is the empath's initiation, standing fully present in another's suffering and choosing not to become consumed by it. This final threshold is no mere metaphor. It is a daily crossroads where you decide, will you carry the storm's burden, or will you contain it with compassion and release its force back into the world with grace? To practice this, begin each day with a simple ritual. Visualize your own inner sanctuary, a hollowed-out cave, or a peaceful grove, and imagine placing your true self safely there. Then mentally open a secondary chamber, your empathic vessel, prepared to receive others' emotions without compromising your core. When overwhelm arises, mentally return to your sanctuary, letting the storm drain away, leaving you cleansed and centered. Over time, this discipline transforms the empath's path from endless servitude into sovereign stewardship. You become both the anchor in the hurricane and the beacon guiding others safely through their own storms. Here, at the final threshold, the empath transcends the role of victim or martyr. You emerge as an initiated soul, a guardian of emotional truth, wielding your gift not as a curse, but as an instrument of alchemical transformation. Conclusion: the alchemy of empathy. Empathy, when conscious, becomes alchemy. It transmutes suffering into insight, compassion into wisdom, presence into power. You no longer carry the world's shadows. You stand as a mirror of possibility, guiding others to remember their own center. If you felt the weight of unnameable sorrow or found your joy drowned by someone else's pain, know there is a way through. Begin today by pausing, naming the feelings that surge through you, and gently erecting the membrane of your soul. Practice saying, "I feel you, but I do not become you." Watch as that simple sentence becomes the key to a life where empathy is not a trap, but a threshold to true self-mastery. I'm grateful you've joined me on this journey. Hit subscribe and become part of our community of conscious empaths, mystics, and seekers. Share in the comments one moment this week when you preserved your center amidst the storm. Your courage might light the way for someone still lost in the echoes of other people's pain. You are not merely a conduit of feeling. You are the alchemist of the soul, and your greatest work begins now.